Don't cry, I'll pay for it.
The cashier's bank balance hit zero the moment she swiped her card for the stranger everyone was laughing at. She didn't know his card was fake. She didn't know the hoodie was a costume. She didn't know that the shaking, crying man she had just spent her last dollar on was the chairman of the most feared syndicate in Korea. And that he had walked into this store tonight looking for exactly one thing: a woman who would give a stranger something she couldn't afford to lose. He found her at Register 6. But here's what nobody tells you about men like Park Soo-jin. Men who control empires, who buy buildings the way you buy coffee, who have entire governments afraid to say their name out loud. The thing nobody tells you is this: the most dangerous men in the world are not the ones who want power. They already have it. The most dangerous men are the ones who want love. Because they will burn everything to the ground to find it. And if they find it, God help anyone who tries to take it away. Now let me take you back. 6 hours before that moment at Register 6. 6 hours before Janaya Cole's life changed forever. Let me show you who this man really was. Seoul, Thursday morning, the 47th floor of Gumga Tower. The city glittered beneath him like a circuit board. Millions of lights, millions of lives, and every single one of them touched something he owned. Park Soo-jin stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his penthouse, hands clasped behind his back, watching the city breathe. He didn't smile. He never smiled. Smiling was for men who needed people to like them, and Soo-jin had never needed anyone to like him. He needed them to obey. And they did. At 38 years old, Park Soo-jin was the chairman of the Gumga Syndicate, a name that was never spoken above a whisper in certain rooms and never spoken at all in others. On paper, Gumga was a holding company: real estate, shipping, import-export, technology, clean numbers, clean offices, clean suits. But beneath the surface, beneath the glass towers and the quarterly earnings reports, Gumga was a kingdom, and Soo-jin was its king. Not the kind who wore a crown, the kind who didn't need one, the kind whose silence could empty a room, whose phone call could end a career, whose name alone could make a grown man lose his appetite. He controlled ports in Busan. He owned half the commercial real estate in Gangnam. He had judges who owed him favors, politicians who owed him more, and an army of men, quiet, precise, loyal, who would walk through fire if he raised a finger. But here's the part that changes everything. Here's the part most people don't understand about power. His father, Park Dae-ho, had built Gumga from nothing. A street-level operation in Incheon that grew into an empire through discipline, violence, and an iron code. You protect what is yours, you destroy what threatens it, and you never show weakness. Soo-jin inherited all of it at 26, when his father was shot twice in the chest outside a restaurant in Itaewon. They never found the men who did it. Soo-jin did. And after that night, nobody in Seoul ever questioned who ran Gyeomga again. Now here's what I need you to understand. Because this is the part that makes everything that happens in that grocery store hit different. Soo-jin didn't just inherit his father's empire. He inherited his father's emptiness, because Dae-ho had died alone. No wife by his side, no love, just bodyguards and blood, and a son who watched them zip the body bag shut on a sidewalk in Itaewon. And Soo-jin had spent 12 years becoming the exact same man, rich, feared, and completely, devastatingly alone. His penthouse was 6,000 square feet of Italian marble, hand-stitched leather, and silence. No laughter, no warmth, no voice calling his name from another room. Just the hum of climate control and the distant sound of a city that feared him. He had tried 3 times. The first was Yuna, beautiful, polished, the daughter of a tech executive. She smiled at all the right moments and said all the right things. Perfect, until Soo-jin caught her photographing classified documents in his office at 2 a.m. She had been feeding information to a rival family. He didn't hurt her. He just erased her from his life so completely that within a month, it was as if she had never existed. The second was Priya, a London-educated lawyer he met at a gala in Singapore. Intelligent, fearless. She looked him in the eye when everyone else looked at the floor. He thought he had finally found someone real, until he discovered she had been recording their private conversations for 8 months. A book deal. A tell-all memoir about life inside Gyumga. He ended it with one sentence. I trusted you. That was my mistake. It will not happen again. And then, there was Minji. Stop for a second. Because Minji is the one you need to pay attention to. Minji is the reason Sujin is standing in a grocery store in Atlanta, Georgia, wearing a dirty hoodie, pretending to be homeless. Minji is the reason for all of this. She was kind. Not performed kindness, not strategic kindness, real kindness. A pediatric nurse who volunteered at a free clinic in Mapogu. She didn't care about his money. She didn't care about his name. She brought him homemade soup when he worked late. She held his hand in the dark when the nightmares about his father came. She loved him, or so he believed, for 2 years. Until the day he found the prenuptial agreement. Her family's lawyer had drafted it, before Sujin had even proposed. It included a clause guaranteeing her family control of 2 Gyumga subsidiaries if the marriage ended within 5 years. Every act of kindness, every bowl of soup, every hand held in the dark, all of it, a performance. Her love was a business plan, and Sujin, the man who could read a rival across a negotiation table, who could sense a lie from 3 rooms away, had been fooled. That broke something inside him, something that didn't heal. After Minji, he stopped trying. He buried himself in work. He expanded into America, Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles. He built. He acquired, he conquered. And every night he came home to 6,000 square feet of nothing. But tonight was different. Tonight, standing at that window, watching Seoul pulse beneath him, Sujin made a decision that would change 2 lives forever. His, and a cashier's in Atlanta, who didn't even know he existed yet. His phone buzzed. Chairman, your 9 o'clock is confirmed. Minister Kang's office sent the contracts, and the Atlanta properties closed today. All 14. Hyun-woo, his right hand, his shadow, the only man alive who had been with Sujin since the beginning. Hyun-woo had taken a bullet for Sujin in 2014. The scar ran from his collarbone to his shoulder blade. He never mentioned it. He never needed to. Cancel the 9 o'clock, Sujin said. Silence. Then, carefully. Chairman? Cancel it. Minister Kang has been waiting 3 weeks for this. Hyun-woo. Just the name. That was all it ever took. Yes, Chairman. Cancelled. Is there something else? Sujin was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that made Hyun-woo's blood go cold. Do you remember what my father used to say? A man who is feared by everyone is loved by no one, and a man loved by no one is the poorest man alive. Hyun-woo said nothing. I own 14 buildings in Atlanta. I own ports, towers, men. But I do not own a single honest moment with another human being. Every woman who has ever touched me was reaching for my wallet. Every smile I've ever received was purchased. Every I love you came with a contract hidden behind it. Chairman, I'm going undercover. Now I need you to really hear this. Because everybody says disguise tests are about finding good people. They're wrong. This wasn't about goodness. This was about survival. Sujin was testing whether the last shred of faith he had in humanity deserved to exist, or whether he should kill it and accept that he would die alone, just like his father. I need to know if kindness still exists, he said. Not kindness that performs, not kindness that calculates, real kindness, the kind that costs the person giving it. Chairman, with respect, you are the most recognizable man in Seoul, not in Atlanta, not in a grocery store on a Thursday night. Not when I look like a man who has nothing. This is dangerous. Everything I have ever done is dangerous. At least let me send a team? No. No team inside the store. Men in the parking lot. Eyes on every exit. But inside that store, I walk alone. And I see what the world does to a man who has nothing. Hyunwoo exhaled. Which store? The Greenleaf Market on West Peachtree. One of ours. I bought it last quarter. And what exactly are you looking for? Soo-jin turned from the window, his reflection stared back. Tall, broad-shouldered, the faint edge of a dragon tattoo creeping above his collar. The most powerful man in any room. And the loneliest. My mother, before she died, told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "You will know she is real when she gives you something she cannot afford to lose, and she does it without hesitation." I have been waiting 15 years. I am done waiting. And if you don't find it? His jaw tightened. Then kindness is dead, and I will live the rest of my life exactly as I am, rich, feared, and alone. Hyunwoo was quiet. Then, softly, "I hope you find her. Now pay attention." Because while Soo-jin was planning his test on the 47th floor of a tower in Seoul, 6,000 miles away, a woman was sitting on the edge of her bed staring at her phone, trying not to cry over $437.50. And I promise you, what's about to happen to these two people? You are not ready. 6,000 miles away, East Point, Atlanta. A one-bedroom apartment where the radiator clanged at 3 a.m. and the hallway always smelled like someone else's cooking. Janiyah Cole sat on the edge of her bed and stared at her phone screen until the numbers blurred. Bank balance, $437.50. Tuition payment due, $437.50. Tomorrow, 11:59 p.m. If she missed it, she would be dropped from the nursing program. 2.5 years of work. Night shifts, double shifts, skipped meals. Gone. Because the system didn't care how hard you worked. It cared if you could pay. She pressed her palms against her eyes. Don't cry. You cannot cry. Crying doesn't pay bills. She was 24 years old. She had moved to Atlanta from Montgomery, Alabama, 3 years ago, with $600 in her pocket, and a promise she made to the only person who had ever loved her unconditionally. Her grandmother, Erlene Cole. The woman who raised her after her mother left, and her father went to prison when Janiyah was 9. Baby, you're going to be a nurse. You're going to help people. And nobody is going to stop you. Erlene Cole had died 7 months ago. Pancreatic cancer. Fast and merciless. Janiyah had been holding her hand when she took her last breath. And the last thing her grandmother ever said. The last words that ever came from the mouth of the woman who had taught Janiyah everything she knew about love and sacrifice, and showing up for people even when it costs you, was this. Finish, baby. Promise me you'll finish. And Janiyah had promised. So she worked. God, she worked. From 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., cashier at Greenleaf Market. Minimum wage, no benefits. A manager who treated the staff like furniture, from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Cleaning offices downtown. Vacuuming. Scrubbing toilets. Emptying trash cans for people who never saw her face. Between the two jobs, she studied. On the bus. On her break. At 1 a.m. when her body screamed for sleep. Anatomy, pharmacology, patient care. She memorized drug interactions while mopping floors. She practiced blood pressure readings on her own arm because she couldn't afford a simulation lab fee. And now, after all of it, she had exactly $437.50. The exact amount she needed. Not a dollar more. No room for error. Her phone buzzed. A text from Devontae, her younger cousin back in Montgomery. 16. Smart. Too smart for the neighborhood he was growing up in. Nia, you good? I know tuition's due. She typed back. I'm good, Vo. Don't worry about me. She wasn't good. She was terrified, but Devante needed to believe that hard work paid off. He needed to believe his cousin was making it. She set her alarm for 5:15 a.m., laid her uniform across the chair, whispered to the ceiling, to her grandmother, to God, to whoever was listening. I just need to make it through one more week. Now here's the detail that's going to make everything hit harder. Remember it. Write it down if you have to. Tomorrow, Thursday, Janiyah would pay that $437.50 tuition bill. It would go through at 2:14 p.m. Her bank balance would hit exactly zero. She would walk into her evening shift at Greenleaf Market with literally nothing. Not $1 for food. Not a cent for the bus. Zero. And that evening, at 7:47 p.m., a man in a dirty hoodie would walk into her lane at Register 6. And she would spend money she did not have to feed him. If you think you know where this is going, you don't. Not even close. Because what Sujin does when he sees her sacrifice, it's not what you're expecting. It's darker. It's bigger. And it changes everything. Thursday night, 7:47 p.m., the Greenleaf Market on West Peachtree. Half empty the way grocery stores get on weekday evenings. A few stragglers. A stock boy restacking soup cans. The low buzz of fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly sick. Janiyah was at Register 6. 12 minutes left on her shift. Her feet ached. Her lower back had been screaming since hour 3. She had eaten half a granola bar for lunch. The other half was in her locker for tomorrow, because she didn't know when she'd be able to buy food again. The tuition payment had gone through at 2:14 p.m. She'd watched the notification during her break. Transaction complete. Remaining balance, $0. Zero. But she was still in the program. Grandma Erlene's voice, "Finish, baby." She would finish. The automatic doors hissed open. A man walked in. Slowly. He moved like someone who wasn't sure the floor would hold him. Hesitant. Hunched. Head down. Oversized gray hoodie, stained at the cuffs. Hood pulled halfway over his face. Dark jeans. Old sneakers. His hands were shoved deep in the front pocket, and even from 20 feet away, Janiyah could see they were trembling. He walked through the aisles like a ghost, picked up a loaf of bread, held it like it was something precious, a can of soup, a bottle of water. 3 items cradled against his chest because he hadn't taken a basket. He walked to Register 6, Janiyah's register, the only one without a line. As he got closer, Janiyah saw his face. Young, mid-30s, though the exhaustion made him look older. Korean, sharp jaw, softened by what looked like days without food. His eyes, dark, deep-set, were locked on the floor. He wouldn't look at her. He placed the items on the belt one at a time. Bread, soup, water. His hands were shaking so badly the soup can nearly rolled off the edge. Janiyah caught it. "I got you," she said softly. "No worries." He flinched, like he wasn't used to being spoken to gently. She scanned the items. 3 beeps. "That'll be $6.27, sir." He reached into the hoodie pocket, pulled out a card, plain, no bank name, handed it to her. His fingers brushed hers, ice cold. She swiped, declined. "I'm sorry, it's not going through. Want me to try again?" He nodded without looking up. Declined. "One more time?" Declined. The register beeped its rejection, loud enough for the stock boy 3 aisles over to hear. The man's shoulders dropped. He reached for the bread. To put it back? To disappear? And his voice came out barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, I don't understand why it's... What's the problem here?" That voice cut through the store like a blade on glass. Derek Hollins, store manager, tall, thin lips, the kind of man who had been given a small amount of power and wielded it like a sword. He talked down to cashiers. He docked pay for bathroom breaks over 4 minutes. He once made a 16-year-old bag boy cry over a misplaced shopping cart. He looked at Sujin. One glance, stained hoodie, trembling hands, survival groceries. Derek's lip curled. Sir, your card was declined 3 times. Step aside. Sujin didn't move. I said step aside, you're holding up the register. The register was empty. There was nobody behind Sujin, no line to hold up. But Derek didn't care about the line. He cared about the performance. He wanted this man to feel exactly how small he could make him. I just need the bread. I haven't eaten in... I don't care. Derek stepped closer. This isn't a soup kitchen. This isn't a charity. You want free food? There's a shelter on Boulevard. But you are not getting anything from my store. Derek reached across the counter and snatched the bag. The bread poked out from the top. Get this trash out of my store. You smell like you slept outside. You're making my customers uncomfortable. 4 other people in the store. None uncomfortable. None said a word. An older woman near the deli looked at her shoes. A man in a business suit pretended to read a cereal box. 2 teenagers near the exit glanced over, went back to their phones. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The silence of bystanders. Sujin stood there, head down. And then, slowly, his shoulders began to shake. A sound escaped him. Quiet. Broken. The sound a man makes when the last thread of his dignity snaps. He looked up. Not at Derek. At Janiyah. His eyes found hers across the counter. Please, I just need the bread. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Now stop. Right here. This is the moment. Everything. Sujin's entire plan, 12 years of searching, his mother's dying words, came down to what happened in the next 30 seconds. He had tested humanity before. He had watched people walk past suffering without blinking. He had watched women love his wallet and ignore his soul. His faith in human beings was hanging by a thread so thin you couldn't see it. And that thread was in Janiyah's hands. She just didn't know it yet. Derek snorted. Buddy, I don't care if you haven't eaten in a week. Pay or get out. He put his hand on Sujin's shoulder. Not gently. A shove. Move. Now. Before I call the police. Take your hands off him. Derek's hand froze. He turned. Janiyah was standing. Not sitting on her stool. Standing. All 5'6" of her. Her eyes were not tired anymore. They were on fire. Her jaw was set. Her voice was low, steady, and it carried the kind of authority that doesn't come from a title. It comes from knowing the difference between right and wrong. What did you just say to me? I said take your hands off him. He is a customer. He is a human being. And you are not going to put your hands on him in front of me. Janiyah, I am your manager. I don't care if you're the President of the United States. You don't touch people like that. The store held its breath, and then Janiyah did something that nobody, not Derek, not the bystanders, not the man in the stained gray hoodie, expected. She pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, and tapped her card against the reader. The machine beeped. Transaction approved. $6.27. The screen updated in real time. She watched the number change. Felt it. Not just in her bank account, but in her chest, in her stomach, in the place where fear lives. Remaining. Balance. $0. Not 0 after tuition. 0 after everything. That $6.27 was an overdraft. A fee she would be charged $35 for. Money borrowed from a tomorrow that was already empty. She had just gone negative for a stranger she had never met. Her eyes stung. She blinked hard. Don't cry. Not here. She bagged the groceries herself. Placed the bag on the counter with both hands, the way her grandmother used to set a plate on the table. With care. With dignity. Here you go, sir. You have a good night. And please, eat something warm. Now here's where I need every single one of you to lean in, because what happened next? What happened in the next 60 seconds is the reason you clicked on this video. And I promise you, it is bigger than you think. Sujin stared at her. Not at the bag, at her. At her eyes, fierce and kind at the same time. At the cheap locket around her neck. At the dark circles under her eyes. At the trembling hands of a woman who had just given away money she didn't have for a man she didn't know. And something inside him shifted. Something locked into place like a key turning in a lock that had been rusted shut for 15 years. His mother's voice. You will know she is real when she gives you something she cannot afford to lose. Derek was still talking. Jania, you just bought yourself a write-up. When I'm done with the paperwork, we're going to have a conversation about your future at this store. Jania said nothing. She'd already said everything that mattered. And you... Derek turned back to Sujin. Take your care package and get out before I call the police. Sujin didn't move. He was staring at Jania, and then his face changed. It was subtle at first. So subtle nobody noticed. But if Hyun-woo had been there, if his men had been watching, they would have seen the exact moment the performance ended. The trembling stopped, all at once, like a switch had been flipped. His hands went completely still. His shoulders, hunched and broken, shifted, squared, straightened, like watching a building erected in fast forward. The framework assembling, the walls going up, the structure rising to its full terrifying height. His jaw tightened, his chin lifted, and his eyes, those dark eyes that had been wet and desperate, dried in an instant. The softness evaporated like water on a hot engine. What replaced it was something cold, something ancient, something that had nothing to do with sadness and everything to do with power. He looked at Derek, and Derek, without understanding why, took a step back. Something primal in his body recognized what his mind hadn't caught up to, that the man in front of him was not what he appeared to be. That the balance of power in this room had just shifted so violently the air itself felt different. Sujin set the bag down on the counter, slowly, the way a man sets down a weapon he no longer needs. Then he raised his left wrist. The sleeve pulled back just enough to reveal something that did not belong on a homeless man's arm. A watch, a Patek Philippe, black face, rose gold hands, worth more than Derek's salary, his car, and his house combined. Sujin pressed a single button. 3 seconds passed. Every door in the store locked. Simultaneously, a heavy mechanical thunk. Front entrance, side exit, emergency door by the loading dock. All of them. Derek's head snapped toward the entrance. What the... The lights flickered. The stockboy froze. The old woman looked up. The teenagers stopped scrolling for the first time all night, and then they heard it. Footsteps. Not one set. Many. Heavy. Synchronized. The sound of men who moved together. Trained to move together. Whose footsteps said one thing. We are coming. And there is nothing you can do about it. The front doors didn't open. They exploded. 2 men in black suits hit them so hard the magnetic locks sheared off the frame. Behind them, more. They poured in like a dark tide. 5, 10, 15, 20 men in tailored black suits, each one built like a weapon. They fanned through the store, 2 to every aisle, 4 at exits, 2 flanking registers. Silent. Faces blank, hands clasped. The last man through was Hyun-woo. He walked straight to Sujin and stood 1 step behind and to the left. His position. His place for 12 years. The store was no longer a grocery store. It was an occupied territory. Derek's face went from red to white. The kind of white with no blood behind it. Sujin gripped the hem of the hoodie, pulled it over his head in one motion, dropped it on the counter. Underneath, a suit. Not department store. Custom-fitted Italian black, tailored to his body like a weapon machined to specifications. Silk shirt open at the collar, revealing the edge of ink on his neck. A dragon. The tail curling from his collarbone, the body disappearing beneath fabric. The mark of Gyumga. He smoothed his jacket, adjusted a cuff, and stood there, 6'3", broad-shouldered, perfectly groomed, looking at Derek with the same eyes that had been begging for bread 60 seconds ago. Except they weren't begging anymore. They were sentencing. "My name," Sujin said, deeper, slower, the voice of a man who had never once needed to repeat himself, "is Park Sujin. I am the chairman of the Gyumga Syndicate." He let the name land. "I own this building." Derek made a sound, the sound a man makes when the floor disappears. "I own the shopping center across the street, 14 commercial properties in this zip code, the warehouse where your trucks park, the lot where your car is sitting right now." One step toward Derek. That single step sent Derek stumbling into the candy rack, gum and mints scattered across the floor. "And 10 minutes before I walked in tonight, I purchased the entire Greenleaf Market franchise, every location, every lease, every contract, including yours." Silence. 5 seconds. 10. The refrigerators hummed. "I came here dressed like a man with nothing. I wanted to see how your store, my store, treats people who can't pay." He looked at Derek. Not anger. Worse. Disappointment. "You grabbed me, called me trash, told me I smelled like I slept outside, threatened police on a hungry man, in my building, under my name." Derek's knees gave. He sank to the tile floor, between the candy rack and the magazine stand, surrounded by scattered gum packets and 20 men in black. "Please, I didn't know. If I had known who you were..." "That." Sujin's voice cracked like a whip. "That is exactly the problem. You would have treated me differently if you knew who I was, which means you don't treat people with dignity. You treat them with calculation. You measure worth by appearance. I was wearing a dirty hoodie, so you decided I was dirt." Derek was crying now. Ugly, panicked tears. "Mr. Hollins, you are terminated, effective, immediately. No severance, no reference, no second chance." "You can't. I have a family. Bills. You should have thought about that before you put your hands on a hungry man and called him trash." 2 men stepped forward, lifted Derek by the arms, walked him to the door. The rain had started. Cold, steady Atlanta rain. They set him on the wet sidewalk. In the rain. In the cold. In exactly the kind of night he'd been willing to send a hungry man into. The doors closed behind him. "Now, I want you to think about something. Because what happened next is the part of this story that broke me when I was writing it. This is the part I couldn't get through without stopping. And I think it might break you too." Sujin stood still. The store was his. The silence was his. 20 men flanked the aisles, every eye locked on him, but he didn't care about any of them. He turned, slowly, and faced Register 6. Jania hadn't moved, standing exactly where she'd been when she swiped her card, hands flat on the counter, eyes wide, body still. She looked like a woman who'd just watched physics reverse itself. Sujin walked toward her. Each step echoed. His men parted like water. He stopped at Register 6, the same counter where her bank balance hit 0. He looked at her, really looked. The braids pulled back, the faded polo, the dark circles, the locket. The eyes, fierce and terrified and kind all at once. And then Park Sujin, chairman of the Gyumga Syndicate, feared across 3 continents, whose name made powerful men go silent, did something that made every one of his 20 bodyguards stop breathing. He knelt. Not a bow, not a nod, one knee, right there on the tile floor, in his $12,000 suit, in front of a cashier who made minimum wage. Hyun-woo's jaw tightened. In 12 years, not once, had the chairman knelt for anyone, not ministers, not heads of state. It was not done. It was unthinkable. And he was kneeling now. "I need you to hear me," Sujin said. Quiet. Not a whisper. The quiet of a man saying the most important words of his life. "What you did tonight, that $6.27 was not nothing. It was everything. You thought I was a man who had nothing, and you gave me your last dollar anyway. You went negative. For a stranger. Without hesitation. Jania's eyes were filling. She shook her head, lips pressed together. My mother said I would know when I found someone real. She will give you something she cannot afford to lose, and she will do it without being asked. 15 years I've been searching. His voice caught. And you, a cashier on a Thursday night. You did what no one else in my life has ever done. You saw a man in pain and you didn't look away. Tears running down Jania's face now. She couldn't stop them. Your tuition, it's paid. All of it. Not this semester. Every semester. Medical school, books, fees, every cent. Paid 30 minutes ago. Her hand went to her mouth. Your grandmother's hospital bill, the one in collections, gone. The debt doesn't exist anymore. A sound escaped her. Not a word. Something from the place where grief lives next to gratitude. Your cousin Devonte in Montgomery. Full scholarship. Any school. Any program. His choice. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the counter, tears falling onto the scanner, onto the belt, onto the bag of bread and soup and water. Sujin pulled out a card, plain white, a single line in black ink, set it on the counter. $6.27. That number is worth more to me than every building I own, because it was given by a woman who had nothing, to a man she thought had nothing, because it was right. Not smart, not safe. Right. He stood, extended his hand, palm up, open. You gave me your future tonight, Jania. Now let me give you the world. Not because you need saving. Because you are the only person I've ever met who deserves to stand beside me. Not behind me. Beside me. She stared at his, hand. Then his face. Then the 20 men in black standing in a grocery store at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. She looked at the groceries. Bread, soup, water. She looked at the card. $6.27. She looked at him, and she took his hand. He led her through the store, past registers, past frozen food, past scattered gum on the floor, past 20 men who parted before them, through the shattered doors, into the night. The rain had stopped. Atlanta smelled like wet asphalt and new beginnings. A black Rolls-Royce idled at the curb, gleaming like liquid obsidian. Hyun-woo at the rear door. Sujin stopped, turned to her. You don't have to say yes to anything tonight, but I'm asking, will you let me show you who I am? Not the chairman. Me. The man your $6.27 just saved. Jania looked at the Rolls-Royce, at the grocery store behind her, at the sky where clouds were breaking and stars were pushing through like pinpricks of light. She thought of her grandmother. Finish, baby. She looked at Sujin, and she smiled. The same warm, quiet, real smile she'd given him at Register 6, when he was nobody, when he was nothing, when he was just a hungry man with a declined card. I didn't help you because of who you are, she said. I helped you because of who I am. He stared at her, and for only the second time in 15 years, something cracked open inside his chest. I know. That's why I'm here. She stepped into the car. He followed. The door closed. The Rolls-Royce pulled away, slow, silent, disappearing into the Atlanta night. Inside the store, the stock boy set down the tomatoes. The old woman wiped her eyes. The teenagers recorded the taillights vanishing down West Peachtree, and on the wet sidewalk, in the cold, in the dark, in the rain, Derek Hollins watched the car disappear. Keycard deactivated. Phone buzzing with a termination email. Hands shaking. Not from the cold. From the understanding. Slow, sickening, permanent. That he had looked at a man and decided he was worthless because of what he was wearing, and in doing so, destroyed the only thing that mattered, his own dignity. The Greenleaf Market closed for renovations 2 weeks later. When it reopened, there was a plaque above Register 6. Small, brass, easy to miss. The richest person in the room is never the one with the biggest wallet. It is the one with the biggest heart. And beneath it, $6.27. Now here's what I didn't tell you. Remember Minji, the woman who shattered Sujin's faith with that fake prenup? She saw the viral video of what happened in that grocery store, and she did something that nearly destroyed everything Sujin and Jania had built. That story, what Minji did, how Janaya responded, and why Sujin's bodyguards had to physically restrain him. That's coming next. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, and comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. Because the grocery store? That was just the beginning. What happened after Janaya stepped into that Rolls Royce? The enemies she made, the empire she entered, and the one moment where she almost walked away from all of it. That is the real story, and it is coming.